very good evening and welcome to the news at 6 here on Rajya Sabha TV. I'm Tracy Shilshi and in the next 30 minutes I'll be getting you the day's top developing stories, starting with the headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi holds talks with Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. India and Egypt sign a pact on maritime transport and decide to step up cooperation in the fight against terror. The Prime Minister leaves on a two-nation tour to Vietnam and China, expected to seek measures to check terror financing and tax evasion at the G20 summit in Hangzhou on the 4th and 5th of September. All India strike by trade unions for better wages and changes in labour laws affects normal life in some states. Metros, including Delhi and Mumbai, unaffected though. And the All India Muslim Personal Law Board tells the Supreme Court it cannot interfere with personal laws in the name of social reform, justifies the practice of triple talaq. Our top story, Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrives in Vietnam on Friday night for a crucial visit before heading to China and then the ASEAN summit. During his visit to Hanoi, the Prime Minister is expected to firm up defence, trade and maritime security cooperation between the two countries. Neelu Vyas from RSTV gets us this report from Hanoi on the meaning of this visit before the two significant multilateral summits.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrives in Vietnamese capital Hanoi on Friday. The day is also significant for the Vietnamese as they celebrate their 71st Independence Day. The excitement among the locals is palpable as they wait to experience what they call the Modi phenomenon. This will be the first visit by any Indian Prime Minister to the country in the last 15 years.
I love Modi.
We excited for Modi.
As the two countries gear up to celebrate 45 years of diplomatic ties and 10 years of strategic relationship, Indians who have invested and settled down in Vietnam have high hopes from this visit. There are around 2,000 Indians in Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City who want to convey to the Prime Minister to make all efforts to extend the trade partnership.
Mr. Modi is probably one of the most dynamic leaders we have seen for many, many years. So that itself is an expectation that he lands in our country, and we feel it's already delayed coming to this part of the world. So in the last 1-2 years, we have built up that part of the excitation to see him in person. That's one.
What message I see that India is giving an important place to Vietnam before going to G20 summit, as well as the ASEAN summit in Laos. So I think our message to Vietnam or our friends in Vietnam that India give very big importance to Vietnam as a country in ASEAN region. I think we should read that way rather than we reading in different way.
The current trade volume between India and Vietnam is $8 billion and both countries have pledged to cross the 15 billion mark by 2020. Apart from boosting trade ties, the countries are seeking to boost cooperation in defence, maritime and cybersecurity. Prime Minister Modi's brief stopover at Hanoi will be a day-long program packed with bilateral meetings, signing of contracts and an address to the media on 3rd September. China's influence in the region is also likely to come up during talks as the visit comes close on the heels of the Court of Arbitration's order on the South China Sea dispute.
It's a third visit by Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Southeast Asia since the time he's become the Prime Minister, which is a clear indication of the fact that India wants to rise high in the strategic calculus of this region. It clearly wants to become a balancing power, but how it can do it, avoiding reactions from countries like China, will be a major test. With camera person Sudhanshu and Anirban, this is Neelu Vyas signing off from Hanoi for Rajya Sabha TV.
And ahead of the Prime Minister's visit to Hanoi, Neelu Vyas also spoke to the Indian ambassador to Vietnam, P. Harish, about what is expected during the tour.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi is arriving in Vietnam today, and it's the first visit by any Indian Prime Minister in the last 15 years. What are going to be the focal points of this visit? Joining me now is India's ambassador to Vietnam, Mr. P. Harish. Welcome, Ambassador, on this program. Would like to understand from you, What are going to be the basic focal points of this visit?
You know, our relationship civilizationally is over 2,000 years old. The advent of Buddhism from India to Vietnam, the fact of the Hindu Champa civilization in central and southern Vietnam, the shared experiences of the freedom struggle, the close relationship between our leaders and peoples. So this is the first bilateral visit of an Indian Prime Minister to Vietnam in 15 years. Next year, we celebrate the 45th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations and the 10th anniversary of the establishment of our strategic partnership. So this is a visit which we are all looking forward to and preparing well for the outcomes of the visit.
But we have seen that both the countries, India and Vietnam, have always kept the strategic strands, of the ties always under wraps, and not much is being talked about it vis-a-vis, China and South China Sea disputes. What is there on the table if you look at the strategic ties, and is there anything substantive which is going to come up tomorrow?
I think the strategic relationship between our two countries is comprehensive and encompasses defense and security relations, a very robust economic engagement with trade and investments, cultural exchanges, people-to-people exchanges, a strong cooperation in various dimensions of science and technology, and a lot of focus on training and resource development.
A lot of it is being read into Prime Minister Modi's visit because we just had the final award by the Permanent Court of Arbitration on 12 July. And the very fact the people are saying that there's some kind of a message which India is trying to send out to China. How should we really officially look into this aspect?
I think the visit of the Prime Minister is important for our bilateral relationship, for our strong strategic partnership, and for the fact that a visit from our side has not taken place, a bilateral visit from our Prime Minister in 15 years. The visit is long overdue, and we look forward to very strong outcomes of the visit tomorrow. So I think you should look at it from that perspective.
Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you for an interview to Rajya Sabha TV.
All right, for more on what is expected, the kind of mood that we're seeing, of course, in Hanoi, we're joined by Neelu Vyas at the moment. Good evening, Neelu. Give us a sense, really, first of all, of the kind of reactions that you've got. We did see some of the locals there saying Modi, Modi, but is that the kind of sense that you're also seeing among the Indian community?
Clearly, Tracy, there's a lot of excitement and a sense of hope also from the Vietnamese people. In fact, I was talking to a lot of people on the street, and they were saying that they have just seen Narendra Modi on the internet, they have seen him on television, but now for many Vietnamese people, it's going to be a first-time opportunity when they'll actually see him in person. So there's a lot of excitement, and also because of the fact that it's the first Indian Prime Minister who's coming for the bilateral talks in the last 15 years. So clearly there is a sense of excitement. But apart from that, Tracy, on the serious note, there are a lot of serious dialogue issues which are there on the table. What we have been told right now is that trade, investment, defense and cybersecurity and maritime security are really going to figure in the talks between Narendra Modi and his Vietnamese counterpart. I was just speaking to a few Ministry of External Affairs officials in the evening, and they told us that the very fact that ONGC Videsh Limited has already had some oil exploration projects in Vietnam for the last 3 decades. So there is a high possibility that there could be some announcements on the oil exploration sector. Of course, these are a few things which are there on the dialogue table for tomorrow.
And talking about serious issues, Neelu, one of them, of course, is the South China Sea issue. A lot of the countries there are, of course, they've been going back and forth really on the Hague Tribunal and its verdict, and how China is, of course, not accepting it. We understand how China, of course, wants India to be on its side. But at the moment, where do we see India, and what kind of a precarious situation is it in right now?
To tell you exactly what the feeling on the ground here is in Hanoi, Tracy, to be very frank, everybody, both on the sides of Hanoi as well as the New Delhi officials, they are very cagey about talking the South China Sea issue, and for the very reason that they want to avoid any strong reaction from Beijing at the moment. Remember, despite the strategic need, economic cooperation is a very big need of this region. And in fact, in the globalized world, a nation cannot afford to remain isolated. But this visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi has to be looked at in the background of the fact that India is expressing its solidarity, a kind of a camaraderie and a friendship with Vietnam at a time when this nation, particularly Vietnam, is facing a lot of hostile relations with China. It is facing lot of pressure from China. So the very fact that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has come to Vietnam, especially going to China, and before he comes for a brief visit and a stopover, it sends a lot of signal to China. But many people say they have a mixed reaction. Many observers and analysts with whom I spoke to, they said that no, it's a sense of a mixed reaction. Some feel that no, South China Sea could not figure during this trip, but there is a high possibility, because unofficially the analysts and the observers are saying that there is a high possibility of the South China Sea issue coming up. But as I told you, nobody wants to talk very openly about it, because Prime Minister Modi has to go to China immediately after this. So they don't want to kind of avoid any strong reaction from Beijing. But defense, as I told you, is one of the key areas which could have key outcomes during this visit. So the very fact that Vietnam is the 8th largest importer of arms in the world, and perhaps India is one of the largest exporters of arms to Vietnam. So you imagine that the maritime needs of Vietnam during at this hour, actually India will be holding hands with Vietnam and will send out a clear message to China.
All right, we'll leave it there for now. Vinilu, thanks so much for joining us for the moment from Hanoi. Of course, ahead of his trip to Vietnam, the Prime Minister did meet Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi today in the national capital. The two leaders, of course, decided to significantly step up their defense and security cooperation in order to deal with the twin challenges of terrorism and radicalization. Here's a report.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi on Friday held summit-level talks in New Delhi. Delegation-level meetings followed the talks that focused on deepening the India-Egypt relationship. The two leaders also witnessed the signing of an agreement on maritime transport before making a joint statement to the media. Prime Minister Narendra Modi said there exist multiple pillars of strengths that can be exploited by both countries. The two sides also spoke about terrorism that both countries are fighting against. The Prime Minister said Egypt agreed to cooperate on fighting terrorism together with India by means of intelligence sharing.
President and I are of one view that growing radicalization, increasing violence, and spread of terror pose a real threat not just to our two countries, but also to nations and communities across regions.
We are further required to reinforce our ties and cooperation due to the sizable threats and common challenges as we face, starting from the dangers of terror and extremism that entails concerted efforts at all levels.
Addressing the threat perception surrounding the Islamic State and other terror organizations, Prime Minister Modi and President Sisi agreed to enhance cooperation in defense and security. India will help Egypt in procuring and upgrading defense equipments as well as training personnel for capacity building.
We agreed to further our defense and security engagements, which would aim at expanding defense trade, training, capacity building.
We will work for a robust military and security cooperation with India and enhance existing activities in this field. In particular, we need to translate the two countries' shared views on counterterrorism into practical measures and clear plans in a more viable bilateral cooperation in this respect.
Egypt is a major country of the sub-Saharan Africa, which has development as top priority. India is cooperating with African countries by providing investment and easy loans in the form of line of credit. At the summit meeting, both countries also decided to cooperate in humanitarian and disaster management as well. Earlier, the Egyptian president was accorded a ceremonial reception at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. Vice President Mohammad Hamid Ansari also met the visiting dignitary and discussed issues of mutual, regional and international importance.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi has also tried to convince Egyptian President al-Sisi about the terrorist designs of Pakistan and how it impacts the whole terrorist activity in the whole region. He also said that the stand OIC takes sometimes, it strengthens the terrorist designs of Pakistan. And it will be interesting to see that how al-Sisi goes and takes a stand in the OIC in the coming days. Akhilesh Suman for Rajya Television with camera person Shiv Kumar in Delhi.
The All India Muslim Personal Law Board told the Supreme Court on Friday that it cannot interfere in religious freedom and rewrite personal laws in the name of social reform. In a document justifying the practice of triple talaq, the board said that its validity cannot be decided by the Supreme Court. The top decision-making body of Muslims submitted the triple talaq form of divorce is permissible in Islam, as the husband is in a better position to take a decision because they won't take hasty decisions, and it is used only when there is a valid ground. The board also stated that issues of marriage, divorce and maintenance differ from religion to religion and cannot be questioned by the court. The law board also clarifies that it was a misconception that a Muslim man enjoys unilateral power in divorce and said that even though Islam permits polygamy, it does not encourage it.
मुस्लिम पर्सनल लॉ जो है वो हमारी शरीयत का एक हिस्सा है और ट्रिपल तलाक का मसला हमारी शरीयत में का एक अंदरूनी मामला है। इसमें किसी किस्म की कोई तब्दीली या इसमें किसी किस्म का कोई इंटरफेरेंस किसी भी जरिए से नहीं किया जा सकता।
ये एक पुरुष प्रधान ग्रुप है और ये एक बन बैठे हैं मुस्लिम समाज के लीडर और इसके ऊपर इनका रोजगार भी शायद निर्भर करता है और इनको अपनी सत्ता और अपनी जो एक तरह से कहें कि हेजेमनी है वो दूर हो जाने का इनको डर है। तो ये अपनी सत्ता और अपना पावर बरकरार रखना चाहते हैं, इसलिए इस तरह की बातें करते हैं जो कुरान में नहीं है और जो संविधान में भी नहीं है।
How a dignity could be given to a lady if she is thrown like a vegetable, uttering 3 times talaq? Is she not a citizen? Is she not a human being? A woman belonging to Muslim community is also a human being. She is bound by all the laws that are applicable to all women in this country. For all women, one law, and only for Muslim women, why separate law regarding talaq, regarding adoption, regarding maintenance.
With a quick break here, we'll be back with more news in a bit. Stay with us.
Mercury or lead. So these are actually soft acid. When they goes into the body and it damages your protein and enzymes in every tissues. You should have some drug that can actually detoxify these heavy metals in your body. So we are focusing on level of not discovery of a drug.
Watch Eureka with Dr. Gauri Prasanna Roy, Assistant Professor, Department of Chemistry, Shiv Nada University, only on Rajya Sabha TV.
Welcome back. The Supreme Court today urged Karnataka to consider taking steps to release Kaveri's water to Tamil Nadu. Advising the Karnataka government to embrace the principle of live and let live, the top court said it must help its neighbour to continue to exist as an entity. The advice comes in the wake of the court's observation that Tamil Nadu had suffered water deficits for 3 straight months in June, July and August this year. The court will now hear the case in detail on Monday. Curfew was reimposed across Kashmir on Friday, 4 days after prohibition orders were lifted from the valley. The order came as a precautionary measure ahead of the Friday prayers congregations, even as normal life remained paralyzed in the valley. Normal life, in fact, was affected due to the separatist-sponsored strike, as educational institutions and private offices were closed while public transport continued to be off roads. In fact, separatists extended the shutdown program till the 8th of September and have called on people to occupy the Srinagar Airport Road on the 3rd and the 4th of September, when Union Home Minister Rajnath Singh is scheduled to lead an all-party delegation to the valley. The valley has been hit, remember, by violent protests after the killing of Hizbul Mujahideen militant Burhan Wani on the 8th of July. As many as 69 people have been killed and several thousands of others injured in clashes between protesters and security forces so far. So as you can see there, security deployment, of course, has been high across the state and especially across the valley ever since the death of Burhan Wani and the outbreak that, of course, the violence that broke out after that. However, it did decrease at some point. However, as we can see, after 4 days of this prohibitory orders being called off, the curfew has been called in again in the valley, especially with the Friday prayers congregations that were taking place today. External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj on Friday led a 12-member delegation to Rome to attend the canonization ceremony of Mother Teresa on Sunday. Apart from the central government delegation, 2 state government-level delegations from Delhi and West Bengal, led by Chief Ministers Arvind Kejriwal and Mamata Banerjee, will also be attending the ceremony in Rome. In March, Pope Francis had announced that Mother Teresa, founder of the Missionaries of Charity, will be elevated to sainthood after the Church recognized 2 miracles attributed to her after her death in 1997. During her 3-day visit, Sushma Swaraj will also have a bilateral meeting with her Italian counterpart, Paolo Gentiloni. This will be the first level contact between the 2 countries after the UN tribunal's verdict on the return of Italian Marines charged with murdering 2 Indian fishermen off the Kerala coast in 2012. On to more national news, and the 10 central trade unions today called for an all-India strike against what they called anti-labour policies of the Narendra Modi government. More than 1 million workers from banking, telecom and other sectors joined the bandh to press for their demands. The states most affected by the strike include Kerala and West Bengal. The bandh evoked mixed responses, though, in states like Karnataka, Delhi, Maharashtra, Haryana and Odisha.
At least 18 crore workers from 10 central trade unions went on a 1-day nationwide strike on Friday. The strike has been called against what they say are the anti-national labour policies of the Narendra Modi government. The striking workers are demanding higher minimum wages and provision of social security to workers in the unorganised sector. As a result of the strike, banks, insurance companies and many other government offices remained closed. Public transport and the telecom sector were also affected. The unions claim the government has ignored their 12-point charter of demands.
ये अंबानी का साथ बात करते हैं, ये अदानी का साथ बात करते हैं, ये कॉर्पोरेट का फेवर में काम करते हैं। हम इसका खिलाफ आज रास्ता पर है। हम चाहते हैं ये सरकार हमारे बात सुने, मजदूर के बात सुने, महंगाई को रोके, नया एम्प्लॉयमेंट जनरेट करे। अगर सरकार हमारा बात नहीं सुनेगी तो हम आने वाले दिन में और जबरदस्त हड़ताल करेंगे।
West Bengal was the worst affected due to the strike. In Siliguri, 15 people were arrested along with Municipal Corporation Mayor. Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee hardened her stand against the strike, warning of a strong action against those who disrupt public life. However, the left parties vowed to ensure that the strike was successful in the state.
Demanding that ordinary workers should also get a rock bottom of 18,000 rupees minimum pay, take-home pay, so that they can have a good, happy family life. We want that every worker should get at least, at the fag end of their life, 3,000 rupees minimum pension.
Strike will be a very big success, very big success. It will send a strong message to Mr. Modi government, to the central government. They have to reverse the anti-worker, anti-labor policies.
In Delhi, the state government invoked the stringent Essential Services Maintenance Act. A strike by 20,000 nurses in Delhi's RML hospital was also declared illegal. In left-ruled Kerala, government offices, schools and colleges were closed and all public transport stayed off roads. Normal life was disrupted in most parts of Odisha as well. Train services were affected following rail roko by agitators. In Telangana, banking operations came to a standstill with over 15,000 employees belonging to various banks participating in the general strike. The impact was partial in Punjab, Haryana, Bihar, Uttar Pradesh and Maharashtra. On Tuesday, the central government had appealed to the unions to call off the strike after an emergency meeting with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And now let's take you through what else made news across the country in our segment Nationwide. With 4 more deaths, the death toll in Bihar rose to 172 due to the heavy floods in the state. The rains have affected over 37.7 lakh people in the state. Meanwhile, in Assam, rains washed away 7 houses, while in Kashmir, 4 members of a family were washed away in a landslide after the rains. In Jammu and Kashmir, the 300-kilometer-long Jammu-Srinagar National Highway was closed due to landslides. Heavy rains also lashed Delhi for the second day in a row. Supreme Court today issued a notice to the Maharashtra government on its complete ban on beef and its export in the state. Last week, the court issued a notice to the BJP-led government on the petition challenging a Bombay High Court order permitting consumption of beef bought from states that allow cow slaughter. The court will now hear the matter after 6 weeks. With 3 more deaths in the national capital, the dengue death toll has gone up to 8 so far. At least 487 cases have been reported in the national capital this season, with 368 of them being recorded last month alone. Meanwhile, a countrywide indefinite government nurses strike proposed from tomorrow, including in Delhi, is likely to severely affect medical services. Now let's get to some international news. And multiple terror attacks Pakistan on Friday. 4 heavily armed suicide attackers mounted a brazen assault on a Christian colony in Peshawar before being gunned down by security forces. In the second attack, at least 12 people were killed and 50 injured after a suicide bomber blew himself up in a court.
It was a day of terror in Pakistan. Dozens of people were killed in a twin bomb attack at a court complex in Mardan town in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. A suicide bomber threw a hand grenade at police guards before storming into the compound and blowing himself up. The attack was claimed by terror group Jamaat-ul-Ahrar, a breakaway faction of the Pakistani Taliban.
6 से 8 किलो की खुदकुश जैकेट थी। इसने पहले ग्रेनेड फेंका है। वो ग्रेनेड पुलिस वालों पे उसने अटैक जब किया तो पुलिस वाले उसमें जख्मी हुए ग्रेनेड से। पहला धमाका ग्रेनेड का था, दूसरा फिर वो जो 6 से 8 किलो बारूदी मवाद की जैकेट थी उसका था।
The blast came just hours after 4 gunmen attacked a Christian colony in Peshawar, an attack also claimed by Jamaat-ul-Ahrar. The attackers, wearing suicide vests, were killed during a gunfight with security forces. One security personnel was also killed and several others were injured in the attack.
वो जो सिक्योरिटी गार्ड था ना, तो उसने वो हमसे ये कह दिया कि उसने एक ग्रोह देख लिया कि अंदर जाने की कोशिश कर रहे थे, तो उसने आवाज़ें दी, लेकिन उसने कोई जवाब नहीं दिया, कोई रिस्पांस नहीं दिया, तो उसने इसके बाद उस पर फायरिंग शुरू कर दिया। उसमें एक बंदा को गोली लग गई और 2 बंदे अंदर घुस गए।
Pakistani Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif said these terror attacks cannot shatter the country's unflinching resolve in the war against terrorism, even as the terror group vowed to carry out more such attacks. The Jamaat-ul-Ahrar group have targeted lawyers in the past, including a bomb attack in Quetta last month that killed more than 70 people, most of them lawyers. The group was also responsible for the attack on a government office in Mardan, in which 20 people were killed. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And that's all we have for you on the news at 6. Have a good evening.